You're like,
And I
okay.
want it, it's just recording.
Yeah.
Not one person that doesn't get it.
Nice.
Okay, we are on.
Revenue.
Welcome to the audit committee meeting. I'm Lauren Breithaupt. It is 5:05 on January 6th, 2025. We are here to talk about our financial statement audit for the year ended June 30, 2024. We had another very successful audit. Everything went really well, and worked well with Tonya and her team, and I will turn it over to Tonya to talk about it.
So we completed the June 30, 2024 audit on December 19th, 2024. And for the city's financial statements, our opinion is limited to the basic financial statements and specific pieces in the supplementary information. We applied limited procedures to the management discussion and analysis. Like we read it, make sure that it matches, but it's not specifically audited, along with the schedule of changes in city's total OPEB liability ratios and the city's proportionate share of net OPEB asset and liabilities, the schedule of funding progress, other post-employment benefit plan, and the schedule of proportionate share of net pension asset liability. So we don't express an opinion on those pieces. The reason for that is they're 10-year schedules. And so we audit the current year information, and we technically have audited the other information as well, but we don't apply an opinion. The introductory section and the other financial schedules and the statistical section, we have not done any audit work on and accordingly express no opinion on. I will say we do check the statistical schedules to make sure that they match in the current year. The financial statements were submitted to the Government Finance Officers Association certificate for the Certificate of Achievement of Excellence in Financial Reporting, or ACFR. And the city did receive the ACFR for the June 30, 2023 audited financial statement. So last year. So you always get it like a year, like, well, 6+ months after you apply for the program. But what that is it's basically an awards program that the city applies for, and the city puts a lot of time and effort into having the additional pieces that are needed for the ACFR or the GFOA award program, specifically like the statistical section information. There were no restrictions placed on our audit. There were no disagreements with management. Management's judgments and accounting estimates were found to be appropriate under the circumstances. Some of the estimates include things like depreciation. We don't know how long a building's going to last. We don't know how long a vehicle's going to last, along with amortization, which is another similar to depreciation, and then compensated absences payable. We don't know when team members are going to be taking their vacation. So we don't know if it's all going to be due in the next year. Very unlikely. So we don't know exactly. They might have a higher rate when they actually take that vacation time that's payable to them. Allowance for doubtful accounts. The net pension liability is the largest estimate on the city's financial statements, and that is a number that the city does not calculate themselves. The state of Oregon, PERS, calculates that amount based off of assumptions that they have. All those assumptions are listed in the notes of the financial statements. As long as the city is making their required contributions, then they will cover that liability in the future. We didn't find any transactions entered into the city that lacked authoritative guidance, and there were no material misstatements or proper presentation in the financial statements. In some cases, management may decide to consult with other accountants about auditing and accounting matters, similar to a second opinion. There were no such consultations with other accountants that we are aware of. There is also a report, an independent auditor's report required by Oregon state regulations, and that is basically Oregon minimum standards. So the Oregon state legislature has said, Oregon municipal auditors, we want you to look at a couple of our laws that we have that are not necessarily finance related, like Oregon budget law, Oregon public purchasing law, to make sure that the city is going out and putting advertising when they're going out and doing like large construction projects, things like that. They're spending highway funds appropriately. The investments are in appropriate funds. We did not have any findings or anything in Oregon minimum standards as well. So it was a clean opinion or an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of opinion that we can give on a set of financial statements. So overall, it was a great audit. Does anybody have any questions or want anything explained in the audit?
I presume there's some sort of sampling process instead of the transaction.
Yes.
What are some of the rules for that?
So obviously there's no way for us to audit 100% of the transactions. And so what we do is called a risk-based audit. So we go in and we look at where are the higher risk areas. So obviously anytime there's cash transactions, it's always going to be a higher risk area. But like, for example, property taxes, most of the property taxes come in during certain times of the year. So we confirm that with the county, like how much property tax revenue that the city has received. So there is a sample that we do when we test that revenue, but we also confirm it with an external source. And so it just depends on what transaction it is, how we do a sample for those specific items. But if it's a higher risk area, then we're going to do more work in that area and do larger sampling. Yeah, and we always add an element of unpredictability every year as well. So we don't do the exact same stuff, which always keeps them on their toes. So Carol remembers that we spent actually more time on property taxes this year than we did in the past. So
I remember back when I was doing this for a living, where I worked, the elected officials did not understand what Oregon minimum standards meant. They felt that meant that the auditors did the minimum that they could do. And that was always something to explain, that even though it's called minimum standards, it's, as you said, it's stuff that's kind of outside of the direct financial transactions.
correct. So some of it is financial related, like we make sure that the city is using banks that are collateralized. So if the bank were to go under, that the city funds would be protected. So it is like kind of financially related, but it's not. So they have very specific things that they want us to look at for those
Yeah,
minimum standards.
not transactional.
Correct.
So that
It's more compliance based is the way that I would put the minimum standards report. It's an added layer on top of a traditional financial statement audit.
One of the areas is public contracting purchasing, and that's under minimum standards, and that kind of, they are looking at more transactional accounts. So they are looking at contracts and making sure that we're going through the procurement process properly. Show we bids and whatnot.
We look at the bids to see who was selected and make sure that it was a fair process. We also look to ensure that whoever was selected as the successful contractor, that they have insurance in the city's name to, like, there's just like little pieces that we take a look at. We also make sure that the city follows Oregon budget law and does the publications that the public's invited to be a part of that process when you're going through the budget process as well. So it's not just all numbers. It's also like, were they noticed in the paper correctly? Did people know that the meetings were taking place and where they were taking place? So yeah, it was a very good audit and we really appreciate all the hard work. It takes a lot of time and effort to put together a set of financial statements like this. So
I definitely have to say a big thank you to Misty. She did a lot of the work this year, and also to Caitlin Coe, who's not here, but she took over a lot of our extra roles to help so that we could do a lot of the work. So you did a great job. Fantastic job, Misty, and Caitlin, you did a great job.
Well, I'm organized.
yeah, it's a lot of time and effort.
Misty did all the hard stuff. It's like, here, Misty, I don't want to do this.
We've been working several times together. I was like, I think I even helped when I was in the airport one day.
He does, and Lisa's like, not fun, but finances itself is usually okay. Well, Tonya will present to the council just a brief
Yeah, the
version of this.
Right for summary.
Of course, we have one more year on our contract with Merina. We would love to be with them forever, but they're moving on to more of a consulting role. So we will be going out for an RFP probably before we even need to, just so that we have someone on board during this audit period, so that if we have questions, we can chat with Tonya about it, but then also like tell them what we're doing before we have to, you know, since it will be during the year.
And I've already talked to some firms as well about the fact that 3 of our clients will be going out for bid, so they're well aware.
Yeah, so we'll probably be issuing an RFP. I'm thinking probably this summer sometime, and then some new firms. But yes, we have one more year. So this current year that we're in will be audited with Merina, and then new firm will we'll have the RFP, and then we'll bring the results to the audit committee for the selection process. So it's the audit committee council picks.
And when you do the selection, do you have weighted different aspects?
We
So
will.
it's not based necessarily on the lowest cost.
It will not just be based on the lowest cost. It will be based on other factors too. So we'll have that all outlined in the RFP, and then we'll have that remit for you both to make that decision.
And we have a list of, we have an Excel list of all the municipal auditors in the state of Oregon, all compiled by what firm they are with, so they, like, we can provide that too as well.
Thank you, everyone, and appreciate
Thank
you all being on this committee. And of course, in the meantime, if you ever have questions, feel free to reach out to Tonya or her team. Very responsive, as she said, even in the airport. Like answers questions, like pulls out her computer and has calculations. And she's in the airport, not even on a work trip, on a personal trip. She's with her family.
I got it.
Moffit, Moffit, sorry.
Well, with that, I will end the recording and end the WebEx. So thank you very much, everyone.
You all.
See you.
Good to see you, yes.
After the swearing in, it's like.
Oh,